Over the past couple days, you guys have been submitting questions asking me about my trip to SummerSlam and everything that I did around it. And while I do have a vlog coming out later this week that encompasses the whole trip and everything we experienced along the way, I did want to take a moment and answer some questions, or a lot of questions, that you guys have been asking me. Since my favorite thing to do on this channel is interact with you guys in the comments and on Discord and live streams or whatever, I'm going to answer a pretty good chunk of these. So if this is something you want to be a part of in the future, follow me on X or on YouTube. I post in both places prompting questions like this fairly often. Superkick Anthony says, as someone who's never attended an event but plans to go to Mania 41, are there any suggestions on some cool things to do that weekend? I've heard about WrestleCon and that sounds interesting. As for your question about WrestleCon specifically, I am planning on doing a video that is specifically about my experience with going to WrestleCon. That'll probably also be coming out later in the week. But as for the rest of it, when it comes to PLEs, now I've done PLE weeks twice now, both of them SummerSlam last year in Detroit and this recent one in Cleveland. Now, as the week approaches, definitely start, make sure you're following WWE on social media specifically, but go to the WWE tickets site. Don't necessarily go to Ticketmaster or anything like that. Just Google WWE tickets and click the link that takes you directly into their site where they show all of their upcoming shows, the ones near you and things like that. Usually when the week actually arrives, like when you're going into the week of that PLE, both times now you will see a bunch of events added that will say meet and greets or like Sami Zayn's comedy show. They'll usually have a bunch of those just kind of listed, like what stores they're going to be at, if it's going to be at like a Cricket Wireless store, a Wingstop, or whatever. Sometimes it'll be in a mall parking lot. You don't know. But the main thing to remember is that on those, it will say that tickets don't come out for these meet and greets until the day of. Don't even worry about that. It always says that. I think they just have to put something in that space on the WWE website, but every meet and greet that I've been to has been completely free. Now, there are paid autograph and signings and stuff like that, but those are very specifically, they give you prices. It's very different. The situations where it just says meet and greet with this wrestler at Cricket Wireless and it's just line up at the door and they'll be there for 2 hours, every single one of those I've seen and heard of are just free. But there are other events where they'll say, $50 for a picture and an autograph, and it will specify. It be Wandon says, stadium or arena venue, which do you prefer? Man, so this was my first time going to an actual outdoor stadium venue. So if you would have asked me this question a week ago, I think I would have told you smaller arena all the way. And that's because my only comparison was the Detroit SummerSlam last year. And I've had some time and more shows to compare it to. Yeah, unfortunately, the crowd in Detroit did have popping moments, and it did have moments where the crowd succeeded. But there was a lot of times where it just wasn't it. And I think that if there's not something huge going on, when it's such a big venue and so many of the people watching are further away from the action, it can be tough to stay constantly engaged, especially when you're, a US crowd or you're not a European crowd that's used to screaming at the top of your lungs for the entirety of every sporting event. So generally speaking, for a Raw or a SmackDown, yeah, I do like these smaller venues. It does feel a little more intimate, and it just feels like the atmosphere is a little bit easier to meet a certain standard. But I am telling you that the Cleveland Browns Stadium atmosphere for the entire show, and especially during the bigger moments that really warranted it, was the loudest I have ever been a part of in any sporting event, anything I've ever gone to in person in my life. And I've been to a lot of sporting events for some pretty successful teams. Not the Lions. I was a Red Wings fan growing up, and all we did was make the playoffs. So I've definitely been a part of some really strong crowds, and this just destroyed all of them. No comparison. So I think when the moment is big enough, if it can meet that standard, the stadium is the way to go. But I like that the weekly shows and a lot of maybe the middle PLEs are typically in the smaller arena venues. By the way, if you're not already aware, I do have a Patreon. There's free content over there and paid, so you're welcome to head over there, check out the free stuff, and just see if you're interested in the paid stuff or just enjoy the free stuff. So go check it out. The link will be below. Appreciate it. Back to the video. Garrison says, if you're comfortable with it, what's the price breakdown look like for an event like this? I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, and that's mostly because I don't want to look it up, and I don't want to feel kind of sad about it. I don't think I would regret it if I looked at it, but I can give you the ballpark of what planning this out looked like. So we ended up staying for 3 days. We did not stay in some fancy hotel like downtown or in the city or anything like that. To kind of combat the cost for something like this, whenever we travel for one of these, we stay in a hotel that's usually about 15 to 20 minutes outside of whatever city the show is going to be in. For 3 nights there, I want to say that was the most expensive part of this entire trip. That was probably somewhere between $400 and $500, something like that. But to be clear, it would be cheaper for most other people. We had to pay a pet fee. We bring guy on the bottom left here, Max. We bring him with us on these trips because we don't really want to leave him. It's just random and we don't want to pay for like a pet hotel, so we take him with us and we do a bunch of stuff with him and take him to, we try to take him everywhere. So we're paying extra for most of these trips, paying a pet fee. So for most people it would be cheaper than what we did. But past the hotel, I mean, our tickets, we didn't get spectacular tickets. I want to say they were like between $100 and $120 per ticket. We were up in like the 300 levels. If you follow me on like Twitter or X or TikTok or whatever, I posted a couple shots from my actual view, which you could see great. Like, yeah, the in-ring stuff, we couldn't see every little detail, but they had the banister, like the actual like screen right above the ring. So it was basically like getting to watch it on TV, but have the atmosphere. So that was totally worth the money there. As for everything else, meet and greets were free. We didn't eat fancy. So, the main thing was the hotel. And so once and the best part about the hotel is most of the hotels that we book, we don't have to pay until we get there. So we'll usually book it months in advance and we'll save up. And then worst case scenario, we would just cancel by the last cancel date if, we couldn't scrunch together that money. But WrestleCon was only like $40 a ticket, something like that, which, I mean, I say only $40. I know money's different for everybody. I only say only $40 because I felt like, oh, that's for everything else we're doing to be able to be involved and go to something where a bunch of wrestling fans are going to be. $40. Yeah, I'll pay that just to be a part of the group and be a part of what everyone's doing. Scenery says, how stressful was the trip? The only thing stopping me from going to SummerSlam was the 9-hour drive and hotels nearby. I didn't know where I would stay after. So how hectic was it for you, especially since I would have been alone in a new state? I would have felt lost. I'll be honest. We have the advantage because we go as a couple. Me and Tally, we do these things together. So it is definitely less stressful because we're not doing it by ourselves. I admit I would probably feel like you would. I would probably be a little more hesitant to go to somewhere, a big city like this, completely by myself. That would definitely make me a little more nervous. So ideally, maybe you meet up with someone that you know there, or you find a friend or someone, that wants to take this trip with you. That'll also cut back on some costs too. If you're worried at all about that, hotel immediately cut in half if you go with someone. As for how hectic was it? It was hectic. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Leaving the stadium was very, it was a lot. It was very crowded. The parking garage was, it was hell, honestly. That part was not ideal whatsoever. It was probably the only negative experience, or one of the only 1 or 2 minor negative experiences, was just how crazy it was, especially when you're not familiar with it. Like when we went to Ford Field in Detroit for SummerSlam last year, I know all the spots. I've been going there my whole life. I've been going that area my whole life. So I know the right parking garages to go to. I know the right paths to take that just feel a little bit like safer and more comfortable where other people will be. Yeah, I would definitely say do your research. Something that Tally does whenever we do something like this, maybe I can get her to like comment the link or something below, but she usually looks up like the crime rate in certain areas when picking a hotel, just kind of for peace of mind that maybe some areas get a lot more higher reported crime rate, where others might be just a little bit safer for whatever reason. So she usually does that when we're picking where we're going to stay, just for a little bit of peace of mind, and maybe that'll do the same for you. Hazy says, when watching from home, we could sometimes hear what the people in the ring were saying to each other, but I imagine that it wasn't the case at all in person. Was there any point in which you were confused about what exactly was happening because you couldn't hear what was being said? A little bit, yeah. There was a couple times where I can say specifically like the Seth Rollins moments where he was doing a lot of talking or yelling to either Drew or Punk. There was definitely moments where you could tell their performance. So they're trying to motion and be theatric about the things they're saying to try to get the message across. But there were definitely moments where they were talking for kind of a long time, and I couldn't quite pick up the message that they were trying to put down. That could be a me problem. That could be an individual thing, but there was a couple. Yeah, there was a little bit where the chatter was too much of a focus, where since I can't hear, I'm not gaining anything. The other moment was I wasn't sure how Damian knew Finn did anything wrong, because most of the time you wouldn't notice that kind of thing. But in my last video, a bunch of you commented and made it clear that it was shown on TV. It was made clear that Damian saw the replay and saw Finn do it, because we don't get replays. So that's something else to notice when you go in person. You don't get replays. It just continues a live feed. And I might even be wrong. I don't think they do replays. I'm like 90% sure that the entire time it was just constantly showing what was going on. I don't think they cut to replays for us. I'm like 99% sure. So yeah, we didn't get that context. Maybe some people just kind of saw it on their own. I did not. Ozzy says, did you run into Santi Zab? I did not. I did try. I'll be honest. I reached out to him, I think like the day before he got there, and I was just asking if he was still going to WrestleCon. He said he was, and so I kind of tried to make sure I went that same day. I wanted to keep an eye out for him. I thought it really would have been really cool to meet him, considering how, big of a part of, my journey his content has been. But no, I didn't. Unfortunately, I did not get to meet Asante Zep, what really frustrated me is that I saw later that night he posted a bunch of pictures that he had taken with people, and I was where he was. I was literally in the right spot. I was in the right building. I must have just been there after or before him, because he was literally standing taking pictures with a bunch of people in an area that I had just been hanging out in for like over an hour. So it was bad timing, bad luck, maybe one day. I did, however, get to meet a few of you. There was a few of you that either recognized me at WrestleCon, someone recognized me randomly on the street when I was going to get food, and I met up with one of you at the actual stadium. So it was cool. I got to meet a few of you guys that are watching either, in the Discord, or some of you on Patreon. Yeah, it was cool to meet you guys then. Blaze says, did you notice that Rhea's shoulder came out of the socket? Something like that. And what was your reaction when she banged it against the announce table? I didn't notice that she banged it against the announce table. I was on the opposite side of that. So from where I was sitting, it just kind of looked like it almost looked like she just missed Liv or something and ran into it. I didn't really think too much of it, but I did notice when she did it a second time against the turnbuckle, when she did that and I saw her kind of like act like she put it back in place, I thought that was nuts. I was like, I think she really just popped her arm back in place and is continuing this match. So yeah, I did see the second part of it, so I did get to kind of react to it in that way, and that was awesome. Like, I don't know how legitimate that was or whatever, but it really added to the match for me. It just made her look like that badass that she portrays as. TR Bj says, as someone who was there, what match was the crowd most excited for start to finish? The easy answer has got to be the main event. It's got to be Cody versus Solo, because I feel like there was this excitement and everybody was just kind of on edge, because if Roman was going to return, this was going to be it. Everyone was wondering, when is someone going to start coming out? But as for a match that was just, exciting and brought the crowd, kept the crowd going throughout, without that added factor, it's got to be Damian and Gunther. That was one it was the first one, I should say, it's one of the first times I really heard the crowd getting behind Damian. And especially there was the moments where, Damian looked like he was done and Gunther was going to choke him out, and he would kind of have these moments of power. Like, it was cool to see the crowd getting up for that, but it was also really cool seeing half the crowd chanting for Damian, the other half chanting Gunther, going back and forth all throughout the match. It was just a really entertaining match overall, and I think those added factors really kept the crowd going from almost the very beginning to definitely the very end. It definitely helped that there was the drama with Finn, but even before that, the crowd was really into that one. Madison says, would love to know how you compare this year's SummerSlam to last year's in Detroit. I remember you saying that it was your first time attending a live event, same as me, and I definitely felt more energy this year, but I'm curious if you felt the same overall. Can't wait for the vid. I'm assuming you're talking about the SummerSlam vlog that's coming out later in the week. I am very excited to work on that one as well. Going by your question, does that mean you were also at the Cleveland one? Because that's cool if you went to the Detroit one and the Cleveland one as well, like I did. In terms of comparing the two, yeah, it wasn't really a comparison. Cleveland blew it out of the water, and I guess I'm kind of thankful that if I was going to go to both shows, I'm glad that the one that I think was significantly better was this year and not last year's, because last year SummerSlam Detroit was the first live wrestling show I had ever been to. So I didn't need to be that great, if I'm being honest. For me to enjoy myself, I was just the energy, just the whole situation just had me excited, regardless of what was happening in the ring, and regardless of, and now that I have more context, I can look back and say, okay, there were definitely some duds. The crowd was not it, but I really enjoyed that whole SummerSlam week last year, and it was probably heavily because it was my first time ever. This year, man, the crowd was just incredible. It was the best crowd I have ever been a part of for any live event, any sporting event, any wrestling show, anything. It was fantastic, and I want so bad to experience that again. So I do want to go to more shows like this. I want to find a way to go to more PLEs. However I got to do it, I want to do it. So yeah, I would love to know if you went to both. Let me know what you thought. World Heavyweight Punk says, where did you sit and was the crowd loud in person? I was in the 300s, so like I wasn't quite at the top, but I was like one layer lower, and I was above one of the end zones. It was a really good shot. I'll try to put a screenshot or something from my view, but it was a really good spot. I could see, we were right down looking at the entrance, so we saw everybody come in. We could see the entranceway all the way, so we saw the entirety the entirety of every entrance and exit. And from where we were sitting, we had the opposite scoreboard and a straight on view to the actual screen above the ring. So whenever we couldn't quite tell what was going on because we were a little bit further back, you know, we could see just fine when it comes to like the detail stuff because the camera shot was right there. And like I said in the last question, the crowd was fantastic in person. I haven't gotten to watch the whole show. I got to watch some highlights of what it looked like on TV, but I hope it came across on TV. That was seriously one of the loudest crowds I have ever been a part of in my entire life, and I want so bad to do that again. Kevin says, what do you think of Roman Reigns' new entrance song? You know, I really love his normal song, like the one that he had before WrestleMania 40, but this one, you know, as much as I just thought it was cool at WrestleMania, there is something about just the way that song hit for this return. Something about him it really felt like a song for someone coming back as that hero that no one appreciated and now everybody realizes they need. It had that kind of feel. I'm not like saying that that's exactly what the scenario is, but that's the feel. It really did feel like he was coming back as a hero, and I shed tears. So did Tally. So did other people around us. It was such a good moment. I really do think that song, I can't say it would have for sure been better than the normal one, but it was spot on. Like the opening drums to be what hits first, to see Head of the Table on the Tron with that song hitting was just, it was perfect. I loved it. Danny says, what was the best restaurant you ate at in Cleveland? So in downtown, I have the name of it. It's called the Winking Lizard Tavern. Something we just kind of found nearby and we decided to try it out. It was good. It was the best place that we went to down there. I didn't go too crazy. I just got some wings. Tally got a chicken sandwich. It was a nice restaurant. The service was good. Everybody, the vibes were really good because this was leading up, you know, hours leading up to SummerSlam. But I didn't go too risky because I didn't really want to mess up my stomach or have any, you know, issues right before I'm about to go inside the stadium to SummerSlam. But that's where we went. It was pretty solid. Demi says, what is your favorite experience from the trip? Meeting Bailey, having a conversation with Bailey. I had a conversation. It wasn't a long one, but I had a back and forth conversation with Bailey, one of my favorite wrestlers. And I got a picture with her, and there's more detail to that. And I'm going to talk about that more in the vlog video. I want to dive completely into the experience of the meet and greet and what came of that. But 100% my favorite experience, not counting the show. I'm assuming obviously the SummerSlam event itself, you know, outshines everything, but in terms of all the stuff we did surrounding it, just being in the Cleveland area for SummerSlam, the meet and greet, meeting Bailey was just easily my favorite part. James says, what were they chanting during Gunther versus Priest? Sounded like "we can't see you" or something. So there was two things that happened during that match. One was in a section near us and one was my section. I have one of them recorded. I haven't seen anyone else post this. I might have the only recording of it. First one was a few sections over from us. You've seen this at a few shows where a spotlight is kind of pointing up in the crowd for some reason, and it was super bright and it was kind of blinding a pretty good chunk of people. So they started chanting "we can't see, we can't see," and they dimmed the light or lowered it or something, and then they cheered. That's why you might have heard random pops from the crowd just during that match. The second one, and I have a video of this, I put it up, I think I put it on X, but I know I put it on TikTok. You can check it out there. But one of the screens, one of the big stadium screens, not the one that the WWE brings, but one of the big stadium screens, blue screened. Just, it stopped showing the match and it was just a massive blue screen. I'll put a screenshot of it of here, but if you want to actually see this moment, it was pretty funny. And while it was up there, my section started chanting "we see blue, we see blue, we see blue," and then they fixed it, and then everybody kind of popped for that as well. So there were a couple silly moments from that match. I don't really know why it happened, but that's probably what you heard. Zbat says, for PLEs, are people primarily standing the entire time? Are you directed to sit down by staff? In my experience, the further you're sitting back, the less standing you get. If I'm being totally honest, there might have only been maybe 3. Again, I wasn't super close, so there may have been 3 times where I felt like everybody stood up, and that could have been the Liv kiss, the Liv and Dom kiss. Maybe it might have been the Finn Balor betrayal. I could be wrong. There was some moment during the middle where I'm pretty sure it happened. But when Roman arrived, when Roman's music hit, and every single, stadium seat was in the upright position, nobody was sitting at all. In terms of being told to sit down by staff, obviously not with what I just said, but in other shows where I've sat closer and standing happens during just about every single entrance and finish, like I'm talking the couple times that I've been fortunate enough to sit in floor seats, every entrance, every win, big moment, people are standing. Happens a lot. And yes, there have been a couple times where people stand. The staff will kind of let you stand for a second, but if it doesn't start to fizzle and you don't start sitting, you will get some of the staff that instructs everybody to sit down so people can see. You got to remember, when you're sitting on the floor, you're not one level higher than the person in front of you. So if everybody's sitting on a level playing field, when one person stands, it's blocking a ton of people and not just the person right behind you. So yeah, hope that answered your question. John says, with how many people were there, was it tough getting into and around the arena and getting out after the show? It seems like it'd take a long time just to get up and get a drink, and you miss something, and the traffic jams after the show must be wild. It sucked leaving that stadium. I'm not even gonna lie to you. This is the issue I think that there is when you have a stadium built up against the water, because then nobody can leave in that direction. Everybody had to funnel out like 2 streets back into the city, and it was I felt like we were like crammed together in cattle trying to leave. And I'll go into more detail on this on the vlog, but the actual leaving the parking garage was brutal, absolutely brutal. That was the one part. And I heard that there were like other games going. I think the Cleveland baseball team was in town. Other stuff was going. I think there were other shows going on that kind of contributed to it, but it was awful. In terms of getting up to get a drink or go to the bathroom during the show, I don't. I always try to make sure I go and I bring like a drink or something. I never get food at one of these shows, A, because it's expensive, but B, because I don't want to have to get up to go to the bathroom. So I wouldn't know. I don't know if it was easier or hard. I think Tally got up once to go to the bathroom, and we were just in a perfect spot where the bathroom was nearby. But in terms of leaving this building, it was one of the worst experiences of the entire trip. Was the process of leaving the stadium and getting back to the hotel. The Real V says, on Peacock, there are breaks between matches. Were the breaks noticeable in person, and was it enough time between matches to catch your breath or to reset? I definitely think the breaks are more noticeable watching on TV, I think. When you're there, oftentimes, especially if something big happens, you spend a lot of time between matches talking about it. Of course you do this at home as well, but you're around a bunch of new strangers that you might be talking to. So a lot of times you might just be talking about, wow, can you believe what just happened? And then you might start oh, you think this is going to happen? So the time kind of flies between matches in person, for me anyway. And I do kind of appreciate that little bit of time to kind of digest what we just saw. I wouldn't want the very next entrance to start. Like imagine Dom and Liv kiss. Rhea looks upset and they walk off, and within a minute the music for the next match happens. Like we didn't even, like, we're still talking, like that's part of wrestling to me, is talking about it. And that's literally why I do what I'm doing right now, is I want to talk about this. I can't wait for this video to go up in a couple days. Right now I'm thinking about, I can't wait for some of these to go in the comments, and I want to talk about this some more. That's part of the experience for me. So between matches, I'm utilizing that time, whether to be talk about what's going on to the people around me, or just with Tally, or talking about it like on X or something. I like discussing it. So didn't even notice the time between the matches, if I'm being totally honest. It flies by when I'm there. Karen says, did you attend the event on Friday? I didn't. I just didn't have the energy. I just couldn't. We were up at like 6 a.m. that day to get there early for the meet and greet that we went to. So by the time that was done and WrestleCon was done, and we were like, I was so exhausted. I wanted to get back, and we'd been gone for a few hours, so I wanted to go home or go back to the hotel and take care of Max. So I didn't end up getting tickets to SmackDown, which I'm kind of glad because I was starting to fall asleep at home watching. I was so tired. So no, I didn't go to SmackDown, but that was totally fine. I needed that rest that night because the next day was insane. This says, how are the meet and greets and the events before SummerSlam? The specifics of the meet and greets and the other events like WrestleCon, it's either going to be like in the vlog video, or I'll definitely do a WrestleCon video as well. So I don't want to repeat myself in all those. Keep an eye out for those. But in terms of just the general answer, I had a ton of fun at the meet and greets from start to finish. Like waiting there was actually not bad. I was there for a long time, but you know, meeting different people, the actual meeting of the wrestlers, WrestleCon itself was just cool, meeting a bunch of people. So there was a ton of positives. There was a few negatives that I will save for those videos that I'll go into a little more depth, but it was a great time, just a blast. RX Custom says, did you shop for any WWE action figures at Walmarts or Targets on the way up or down? I forgot, and I literally forgot up until the moment you said that. I read that when I was adding this, and I was so pissed at myself. I drove by, I don't even want to know how many Walmarts or Targets I went to, or went past, I should say. It didn't even occur to me that would have been a great opportunity to pop into a bunch of these and see a bunch of different chances to maybe get the Bayley action figure that I've been hunting for. So yeah, now I'm a little bummed I didn't think of that. That would have been a great idea. I did get some merch though. I did get a little bit of merch at WrestleCon. I'll put that in that video as well. But no, damn, I didn't do that. I should have. Darn. No More Hero says, what match was your favorite? In terms of the event and just cool things happening and overall moment, it was the main event. Definitely with Roman returning, all of that. But the match itself, my favorite match itself was Damian versus Gunther. That one was... it was really good. I thought it made Damian look really good. It was cool to see him get some babyface pops, and I think he worked really well with Gunther. They put on a really good match. That's the one that I look back on, and I haven't had the time to actually go back and watch a ton of the full matches. I've only seen highlights, but that is one I really want to go back and just see all the nuances that I may have missed because I was in person. Nadia says, how did you guys keep cool? That's a great question. So I am pretty fair-skinned. I don't do sun well. And if you've been around, maybe you're on my Twitch channel last year when I went to SummerSlam and I posted pictures and stuff like on Twitch or talked about it, I was super sunburned. So this year we took things a little bit more seriously. We were sunscreened and everything when we went to the meet and greets. And when it comes to the actual stadium, thankfully it was not as hot as it was the first day. I mean, the first day it was like 88 to 90 degrees and the sun was out and not a cloud in the sky. That would have been absolutely brutal at the stadium. So thankfully the temperature was closer to 80 on the day of SummerSlam, and the seats that we had were, the sun was setting behind us. So unfortunately, if you were on the other side of the stadium, you had the sun beating down on you for a long time, a good portion of the show, and the entire time leading up to the show. We were in the shade most of the time, so that's how we kept cool. We just weren't in the sun at all during SummerSlam, just when we were walking in. So we played it safe, and I didn't get any sunburn this year. Z says, are there signs on the Jumbotron for people to follow along with chants at certain points? I'm wondering who coordinates the chants. No, that's a good question, actually. If you've never been to a show, I also kind of wonder that from time to time, like how those chants actually build up to be as big as they are. It just happens, man. People just start chanting and it builds up, and sometimes you might get a section that starts a chant together, but yeah, there's nothing guiding you, there's nothing telling you. So every time you're hearing those chants just kind of start, that's probably one or two guys started yelling it and it caught on and it grew and filled 57,000 people. And yeah, people just do it. Potato says, the crowd seemed like it was kind of dead, was it? How was the pop for Roman's return? How did you feel about Bayley losing the title? I was looking everywhere for your stream before remembering you went. Hope you had a great time. I appreciate that you were looking for my stream. That's very nice of you to say. I did have a great time. But did the crowd really not come across very good over TV? That's insane to me. That's actually insane to me, because that would make me, if you guys are going to tell me that maybe the crowd didn't sound that hot over the TV, I'm starting to wonder if the WWE would have the right technology to capture these bigger stadium, crowd pops or something. Maybe that was just you. I don't know. I would please more of you touch on that. Obviously don't be mean or anything, but like, was that how it sounded? Does it just sound like a normal show? Because it was the loudest I have ever heard. So that really surprised me. The pop for Roman's return, I still watch it back over and over again. It was so good. It was that specific pop might have been the loudest that I have ever heard in any capacity Bailey losing the title, I don't want to talk about it. I like that Nia won. I'm happy for her. I am very sad. I don't like it. Jamie says, is IRL better than on TV for you? Yeah, most of the time. I think there's only one live show I've ever been to where I was kind of like, I'm not really feeling it. That was like back in like December. That was a house show that just, it wasn't quite hitting for me. It's probably not even related to the actual show. I just wasn't that excited for it. I would have probably rather been watching something, watching a show like on TV there. But generally speaking, the atmosphere that you get to just about every show I've been to is definitely more fun than just watching it on TV. But there are pros and cons to both. Ethan says, what was your reaction to the Liv and Dom kiss? It was insane. I think I actually did one of like these. Like I was speechless. A lot of people popped like crazy. I was dead silent. I know a bunch of you were saying, we told you, I saw it coming. I really did not think that was going to happen. I was so sure that if something like that was going to happen, it was going to be a slow burn over time. That caught me so off guard. And it was honestly, I'm glad they made that the start of the show. That was a fantastic way to get the crowd going, to get the crowd excited. That really felt like a great way to open the show because A, it was a great match, but B, that was the first indicator that the night was going to be wild, just that things were going to change tonight. And yeah, it was fantastic. All right, I answered a ton of them. I can't wait to do more of these kinds of things in the future, maybe to other shows or other events that we talk about. So if you're not already following me over on X, do that, or subscribe to the channel. I post it to the community tab on YouTube. Sometimes I'll post it over on X. So either one, follow me there, or both if you want to be a part of these in the future. Thank you so much to the patrons that are flying up the screen. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.